Hello and welcome to this week's video where I'm making a 2.0 of Diamondhead, starting with a different body this time. Now this body should work a lot nicer, it has more of a geometric shape, and it was actually recommended to me by one of you guys. Here is that comment right now. Thank you so much for the suggestion. I would not have come up with this body mold on my own, I didn't even know it existed. But as you can see, it is a lot smaller, which weirdly Diamondhead is actually meant to be around the same height as Heat Blast. I was looking at some actual size charts of the characters. Weird. I kind of figured Diamondhead was always just massive, but apparently not. He's just chunky. But one of my favourite things about this character, I actually love the design in general. You may have seen me post some stuff on my Instagram story about this. I am quite active on Instagram if you guys are interested in just seeing what I'm doing. But his articulation is incredible. You can see there he's got the floating shoulder pads. He's got this diaphragm cut and an ab crunch. And then he's also just got your standard articulation of like the shoulders, the bicep swivel, the double jointed elbows, the hips, the thigh rotation, double jointed knees, the ankle rotation, and then just your standard hinge and pivot for the feet as well. So hopefully this Diamondhead is going to have some incredible range to him for how chunky he's going to be. The head also has some good range, but I'm going to have to do a fair bit of modification to make this work better. It would have been nice to see this upper arm be symmetrical, like on both sides, because I could have just painted this rather than making a new bicep piece. But whatever, we'll do it from scratch. So breaking him into his parts and cutting myself on the way with a Phillips head screwdriver, trying to kind of wrench these two apart. As I was thinking I need to be careful not to slip, I slipped and I took a nice chunk out of my finger. So there is a black center bar that I've put with permanent marker just to kind of cover it up because I don't really want to be showing blood on this channel, and it wouldn't stop bleeding, and it bled straight through the plaster. You'll also see that black bar expand as time goes on. Putting those parts aside, that's for the white leg that I've obviously had to break up to be able to paint properly, and these are the pins that we'll be adding back in later. Slightly different from the Marvel Legends stuff, they're not smaller on one end, they're completely symmetrical pins. But the first thing I want to do is take away the circuitry kind of thing on his hip. Don't want it to take away from the actual design too much, so we'll smooth this out a bit. And we'll also cut these shoulder pads off. Obviously not cutting them all the way off, just leaving enough so I can glue the new shoulder pads onto these rubber bits. I did use a silver pen to mark out roughly where the actual square was, just to not cut too much or too little off. And then also taking this bit of the chest plate off, just to make it a bit more symmetrical. The asymmetry doesn't bother me too much. I thought it would originally, but I end up just not really noticing it that much. Now also sanding all this down, mainly on his left side so that the white paint adheres better. I'm just kind of keying the surface. I'm using 220 grit, but you would typically use about 400. You can see I've also tried to flatten this facet down on his back so that his kind of big diamond spines have a better surface area to adhere to. Then here's that leg that we painted white, all sanded down. And then I've clearly missed a little bit there, so we'll go back in and just take a little bit of that off. But there you go, you can see sanding all the joints down, just to try and make it a little bit better for the paint to stick to, especially since it's going to be like a high wear area. And doing the same with these joints as well. Now it'd be pretty pointless to go and paint black over the top of what is essentially just black plastic anyway. So I'm going to use acetone and just remove all of the green paint until it's all black. Don't forget to wash off the acetone because it will kind of mess up the plastic. If you leave it to sit there, it'll just eat through it. You can end up with this kind of white effect going on, or just with gummy plastic, so do wipe it off afterwards with a bit of water and a paper towel. But there's our clean black leg. I'll give it a matte coat anyway to make sure the surface matches all the rest. But onto the 3D design, and once again, this entire thing is done in Tinkercad. So you can see the new parts on the left. clearly much smaller. I think maybe 2/3 of the original size is what I'm left with here. Some of the main differences being these biceps. I've obviously squashed this one a bit and flattened it on one end so that it can sit flatter alongside his body. It's also got a hollow point going right the way through, and you'll see why I've done that later. The other main difference is going to be the shoulder up here. While there isn't much notable difference from the outside, I've not changed the actual design. Those internal pins are no longer there, because they're going to be glued onto a different mounting point. The other difference is obviously going to be this head. So instead of a socket, there is now an actual ball peg, just to help it sit better, because that's the way this Power Rangers figure is designed. Double ball joint, so we're going to have just one ball joint. Now this entire set will be available on my Etsy soon. I just need to get some printed out and ready in stock, same with forearms. As of right now, my Etsy has been fully restocked of stuff that was already available on Etsy to begin with. You can also get all my stuff on CG Trader now. Most of my files are available there. Here are the 3D prints, all done in clear. So when he's backlit, he does glow. Whatever reason, I completely forgot to show it on camera again, so my apologies. It will be on Instagram if you're interested. For sanding down these arms, these rubber bits actually come off. Don't attempt to sand them. I'm glad I checked first. With a bit of heat, you can just pull those straight off. But sanding them down, you see how thin they get. And with this should allow the actual joints, or the 3D printed parts, to fit over the jointed arms. Also do it over a bin, don't just do it over your lap, because you can see I am absolutely covered in bits of black spur plastic. You can see the hoover there. That was preemptively brought up so that I could brush it all off onto the floor and then hoover it up. Now here is the painting process. It is just the clear resin that I've sprayed over the top of, and then given a matte coat to protect it. This is the white primer I've used for the actual white. Here's the grey I've used for the Omnitrix. And then here's the pearl green. It is called pearl green, so you can just search Tamiya pearl green. And then there's the matte lacquer that I use. High Coat, please sponsor me. I use your products all the time, and they're very good. These are the airbrush paints I used. The yellow isn't as vibrant as the one that I got for free with my airbrush originally, so the eyes aren't quite as bright as the older Diamondhead. But you can see I've used a toothpick just to paint anything that's small detail here. But here he is, all set up. You can see he's got that nice kind of pearlescent sheen going on. And again, it's not that many like thick layers of paint, so if I did backlight him, he would have an interesting kind of glow to him. And you can see what I mean about sanding those points down so the spines actually fit. Now what I'm pointing at there is something that bothers me a little bit. I didn't paint the shoulders because I kind of figured they'd be covered by the shoulder pads. And from the front they are, but from the back you can clearly see where I haven't actually painted them. And it kind of breaks up the arms being one piece a little bit. But now adding the final touch. Rotating it a tiny bit because it was ever so slightly off. And there we go. That is Diamondhead 2.0 finished. You can see those shoulders being able to rotate just gives him so much more range. And then because they're floating and they lift, obviously I can actually lift these arms up. They would lift a bit more. I don't want to risk scraping the paint because he was painted today, and obviously it normally takes about 24 hours to paint to fully dry and like be pure. So yeah, I don't want to risk scraping the paint, but he could in theory lift his arms higher because you can see there's still give in that shoulder there. I've also moved on to black electrical tape to censor the cut, because although it's mostly healed now, it's a nasty looking cut. And I don't think anyone wants to see that. But now moving on to articulation range in his torso. So you've got some good crunch. Again, don't want to force it too much. You can see I've actually just chipped the paint there because I wasn't giving that much care to it. But that'll be an easy touch up just with a little bit of white marker. You can see that diaphragm joint allows for a lot more posing as well. I love a diaphragm joint. It looks more organic than just a swivel and an ab crunch. I see the arm falling off there as well, where I haven't actually pinned it on properly. But getting him on the turntable, I am very happy with this guy. I'm a lot happier with the old version. I'm also glad that the old version won't be going to waste, because I will be reusing the body at some point. But yeah, very, very happy with this guy. He poses much more naturally than he used to. You can kind of see the colour looks a lot nicer as well. I think the pearlescent effect works quite nicely for the character's kind of sparkle that he has in some of the frames. I can see the spikes on his back fit much nicer. I've got a little bit of super glue blooming going on underneath that one on the right, but that's an easy fix with a little bit of acetone or even just some water sometimes. You can see the poses look a lot more organic as well with his effect parts. Now it was also at this point that my turntable decided to die on me, so we'll just do the rest of the rotation by hand. Now comparing it to the original, it is definitely more green than the old one. The old one is way too blue, especially looking at it now. You can also see those spikes on his back are crooked. One broke off recently, and I glued it back on just before going to bed, and clearly was in no fit state to be gluing that spike back on, because it is nowhere near level with the other one. Look how off-center it is. That's awful. I do still like the kind of bulk of the other one. I like the upper torso proportions, but I do think overall this one just kind of wins. And obviously, canon scale-wise, he works a lot nicer with the others. I do find it weird that he's meant to be the same height as Heat Blast, but this works quite nicely for me. Much happier with this one. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you prefer the old one or the new one. What you prefer about this one, what you prefer about the old one. And yeah, check out Instagram if you want to see some other stuff. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video.